To fully understand why this weapon is legend, you need to roll back the clock a fair bit. So join me in March of 2018. It's a beautiful day outside, sun is shining, birds are singing, all of that nonsense, and of course we're inside playing Warframe, as the Tiberon Prime, together with the Cronin Prime and Zephyr Prime, were just released. The Tiberon Prime is the most powerful, the most flexible, and subjectively speaking, the most beautiful primary weapon in the game. It was the hot girl to have. And of course, what hot girl is complete without a 5 out of 5 Riven disposition? Everybody went nuts over the weapon, and for a time it was the undisputed king. But time flies and things change. Fast forward to 2022 and the Tiberon Prime, while still an absolutely amazing weapon, is mostly a single target weapon in an AoE meta. So the question becomes, can it still compete or not? Well, let's find out. As always, my name is Leyzar, and this is the Tiberon Prime. Let's begin by checking out how the weapon handles without any mods equipped, and for that we're gonna do just a couple of our regular free shots. The Tiberon Prime is an assault rifle with 3 fire modes. You got your burst mode, just pressing the trigger will unload 3 bullets in rapid succession, and the recoil on this one is pretty steady without any mods whatsoever. I mean, take a look. It does climb a little bit, but honestly from the standard 50-meter test this is more than civilized. It's not very constant in the sense that sometimes it goes straight up, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. Press your secondary fire mode to change fire mode, and now you're in semi-automatic. This is bullet by bullet, shot by shot action, and in this mode you will have higher critical stats. One more time, if you press your alternative fire you will switch to automatic, and automatic is, well, pretty much what it says, it's automatic. The accuracy on this one is a little bit jumping, but it does stabilize at full fire mode, so do bear that one in mind. The usability is pretty good. The only thing I can fault the Tiberon Prime for is the magazine capacity, especially if you're going to be using it in automatic fashion. But bear in mind, this is not a bullet hose kind of affair. Now let's have a closer look at stats to see exactly what we're dealing with. Mod capacity 60 out of 60, and if your Tiberon Primes comes with only 30 out of 30, you jump into actions and you plug in the Auto King Catalyst, which will double your mod capacity. It's 100% worth if you're looking for a more standard traditional style weapon. Now mine has been formatted a total of 5 times, but for the weapon build I'm recommending you can get away with something like 3 format depending on the mods that you have available to you. You might want to go to 4 if you got Prime mods, Galvanized mods, and of course a Riven mod as well. Because the Riven dispo is 3 out of 5, which means it is worth getting Rivens for the Tiberon Prime. When it comes to the empty arcane slot, this one is pretty clear cut and dry. Deadhead would be ideal if you're going for a raw force approach. For example, you're going for corrosive and heat, something like that. Deadhead is definitely not a bad idea. Most of the time, however, you're going to end up going with merciless simply because some of your targets, well, a good majority of your targets are going to be dying under the effects of slash procs. Therefore, merciless is best in slot. Dexterity if you're going to be using the weapon in tandem with your melee. Now in the Excellent slot, I vote we don't unlock this one at all in the case of the Tiberon Prime, simply because the weapon doesn't really need much of anything in terms of usability, and the Excellent slot is mostly all about usability. If you're on controller, let's say, and you're having some trouble aiming, you might want to consider Stabilizer with the minus 60% weapon recoil. This will make the weapon a whole lot more usable and fun, subjectively speaking. Now when it comes to the fire modes, you gotta bear in mind that the stats will be changing depending on the fire mode that you're using. In burst mode, you're looking at an accuracy of 33.3 with a fire rate of 7.38, magazine of 42, and a quick reload at 2 seconds. Like I said before, Riven dispo 3 out of 5. Rivens are definitely worth getting for this weapon, and they're not hella expensive either. I would recommend you buy an unrolled one, head on over to Kuva, and try your luck. But if your rolls are anything like mine, then never mind about that. Critical chance and critical damage. Look at this, 28% with a 3.0 critical multiplier. This applies to the burst mode. Absolutely fantastic. If we trickle down to semi-automatic mode, you get even better. Higher critical chance, 30%, and a 3.4x critical multiplier. Now the automatic fire mode has the lowest critical stats. You're looking at 16% with 2.8. The multiplier is still great at 2.8, but the base critical chance is only 16%. Honestly, out of the free fire modes, I would recommend you give a skip for the automatic fire mode. Just use it in semi or burst modes. The damage, you're gonna see a trend. Obviously the damage is basically per bullet damage, so do bear that one in mind. The key differences in these fire modes is between the critical chance and critical damage. Status chance is gonna be 32% highest, however, in automatic mode. In semi-automatic mode, again, you're looking at the lowest status chance, only 18%. And in semi-automatic mode, you're looking at a status chance of 20%. So you see how this one works, right? Semi-automatic mode is heavily weighted into critical chance. Automatic mode is heavily weighed into status chance, And burst is essentially the best of both worlds. It's a balancing act, if you will, and it's also coincidentally the mode I used the most. But enough about that. Let's have a look at a standard build. Damage acceleration, multi-shot with split chamber, critical chance, and critical damage through the use of critical delay as well as vital sense. I would argue use critical delay over the standard point strike 200% at the cost at that minus 20% fire rate. This is a corrupted mod. If you don't know how to farm corrupted mod, you got a link in the cards right now for a full and detailed guide on how to farm corrupted mods. Believe me, there are a lot of corrupted mods which you will need for a ton of builds, not only weapons but also Warframes. Of course, we also got the vital setup on this one, Rhyme Rounds and Malignant Force together with Hunter Munitions. This is the standard vital slash approach that applies to basically most primary critical weapons in Warframe. This is your option slot. I'm gonna go with Vigilante Armaments because this is a cheap, ordinary, average everyday approach. These are all easy to obtain or cheapo mods, and if you don't have the Endo to max out Serration, leave 2 from the top. Trust me, it'll be just fine. Another option to Vigilante Armaments is more crit. Of course, we're using Hunter Munitions, so that's a good idea. You might want to consider Argon Scope with 145% critical chance when aiming for 9 seconds. Listen, this is a critical weapon. You gotta go for headshots, but a cheap approach and effective, I might add, is gonna be with the Vigilante Armaments. We're going to be testing out the weapon like so. No corrosive rejection, no Warframe buffs whatsoever, because that would skew our test results. I want you guys to see exactly what this weapon can do on its own 2 feet on Corrupted Heavy Goons level 120. And we're going to be testing all the fire modes. First off, burst. This is again my favorite and what I recommend. That's a single burst or a cheap build. You see my point? That's a single burst with a cheapo setup. You can achieve one-shots with no problem whatsoever in burst mode. You can achieve one-shots even in semi-automatic mode. Automatic mode, well, not as much. Take a look at the Glorious Slash. Glorious Slash, you got vitals plenty. Switch to semi-automatic. Boom, one shot in the target, 2 free. Look at that. You got bleeds, you got vital procs, and your target is slowly and surely trickling away. If you prefer the crit approach, then you definitely might want to go for semi-automatic or burst modes. Let's try a couple of more shots in automatic mode. Automatic mode, hit a target till about 50%. Slashes completely annihilate the target. I feel this takes too many bullets to actually finish off a target, but it's the most simple and straightforward mode to use. If you're after an automatic rifle though, well, link in the cards right now for an absolutely fantastic one. Trust me, you'll love it. I still recommend for this one semi-automatic and burst modes depending on your own preference. And that pretty much concludes the new player portion of the build. I want you to treat this setup as a starting off point. You can build from this point onward and of course cater it to your own individual preference. Now let's say you got a whole lot of resources, you got everything you need, you got Galvanized mods, Prime mods, you got a Riven, you can do this. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna be dropping Serration and introducing Galvanized Aptitude. Yes, it does work, it's a hit scan weapon, no explosions whatsoever, so Galvanized Aptitude functions correctly on this one. And of course Galvanized Chamber instead of the normal version. We no longer need flat damage, we're gonna be getting plenty from Primary Merciless as well as GA. We got a Riven, this is actually mine, multi-shot critical damage. Simple, to the point, not the best Riven in the world, definitely you can get better, but multi-shot and critical damage on this weapon is definitely a good way to go. And we're going to be testing out the weapon like so, on the same level targets as before, just so you can see what kind of a difference you can expect if you got all the mods and all that. Burst as before. You're gonna have to get a couple of kills, however, because you are using a galvanized setup, so you're gonna be needing yourself a couple of stacks. We got 1 stack already. Look at that. Big slashes. 14,000 on that one, no problem whatsoever. Semi-automatic mode now with a couple of... Wow, look at that. Fantastic. Absolutely bloody amazing. The more stacks you have, of course, the more deadly the weapon becomes. Annihilating those corrupted heavy goons. We're gonna repeat the test in semi-automatic and automatic fashion, and then we're gonna head on over to the Path of Steel so you can see the performance in an actual mission. Switch to semi-automatic, just a couple of bullets. Look at that, 24,000 bleed, man. Absolutely insane. You got 6 slashes there and a single viral proc, more than enough to finish off the target. That's a 10,404 slash. That's 2 slashes, a single viral, leaving the target on about, what was that, 10%, give or take. This would be maximum rate of fire in semi-automatic mode, by the way. You can bind your fire to your scroll wheel, yeah, and just simply scroll. It makes it difficult for me to aim, but maybe you don't have an issue with that. And that's performance in semi-automatic mode. Absolutely fantastic. And of course, the ammo consumption, the ammo economy is gonna be best in semi-automatic mode if you can stomach that fire mode. If not, you can simply go automatic. It tears house. Look at that. I gotta stop myself because I got more than enough procs on my target and I don't really need to waste, quote-unquote, waste all that ammo. But what about Steel Path? Well, Steel Path Void, and that's a Corrupted Heavy Gunner level 130. That was a single shot. I'm gonna put one more in for good measure. Absolutely annihilated the target with no problem whatsoever. Again, I use the weapon in burst mode, but we're gonna be cycling. It's just so you can see the performance. Burst is more than enough. Take a look at that. There's the helmet and there's the corpus. Now granted, corpus are not exactly the biggest on EHP, but they are quite annoying because of their abilities and their increased damage. Notice that with me I have the Jinn. Essentially from the Jinn, what I'm going to be getting is that small buff from the Sentinel weapon, which I will detail in the buff section later on. Let's switch to semi-automatic mode. Boom, a single 2 shots there. We got a Nully here. Of course, if I am facing a Nully, I'm going to be switching to automatic fire. Plenty of slashes, absolutely annihilated the capture target, and as you know, the capture target does have increased EHP and damage mitigation. Take a look at that. Automatic, no problem whatsoever. Again, not a bullet hose-like experience, an assault rifle experience. Now let's switch to semi as well. We're gonna go shot by shot, boom boom. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Hey, even the Stalker is coming! Go away, dude, I already got everything I need from you. And I do believe that's pretty much it for Steel Path performance. Honestly, there's really not a whole lot that the weapon cannot do. Look, there's one of those fancy Nuexima. And fancy Nuexima, stop hiding behind that guy and die. That was a headshot and gone. And absolutely wrecked house. Now, when it comes to the Warframe buffs and Warframe synergies, there are a couple of things which I do want to show. The best weapon buff for Frame, of course, is going to be Lady Mirage Prime. If you're talking powerful weapon buffs, there's nobody better. Now, you can go Corrosive Projection against heavily armored targets, but you're not forced into this one. Please use whatever aura your build calls for. Arcanes, however, are a lot more impactful. If you're going to be going Arcane Velocity, it's not really going to help you because it's for secondary weapons. If you want more raw damage, you can go for something like Arcane Rage. I wouldn't necessarily advise it, however. You can go semi and add some fire rate, but the fire rate one for primaries is called Acceleration. It's on critical hit. It's going to be up plenty % of the time. Honestly, one of these here arcane slots should be saved always for your Warframe build. For example, your Energize. And of course, as a primary offensive arcane, I'm going to be recommending for this weapon, Arcane Avenger, R5, farm from the third Eidolon down on Cetus. This 45% that you see here is a bonus additive after. It applies to your primary, secondary, and to your melee at the exact same time. And keep in mind, it doesn't care about the base critical chance of your weapon. So it's actually quite nice. We're going to go like so. When it comes to companion buffs, you have two options. You either use the Panzerwulpefeila, which is fantastic. If you use the Panzerwulpefeila, there's no need to build Viral on the weapon anymore. Granted, the Panzerwulpefeila's buffs aren't as reliable as your own weapon's Viral procs, but there is that to bear in mind. If not, you can use the Djinn or any Sentinel. Just make sure that on the Sentinel's weapon you have the 4 Vigilante mods, Offense, Supplies, Fervor, and Armaments. If you're using one of these on your build already, no need to use it here as it will not have an effect. And that is pretty much it. We're going to be spawning a level 165 Corrupted Heavy Goons, unpausing them so they can hit me and I can get my glorious, absolutely glorious buffs. And powerful Mirage that you can get from the helmet system and her free ability, the absolutely incredible Eclipse buff. And one more time, for the best animation, Warframe 5, please. Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely beautiful clone. Burst shot, whatever shot, it doesn't really matter. It's Mirage Prime. We're gonna go semi-automatic mode. If you don't get a proc though, that might be problematic. Boom, boom. Look at the raw damage you're getting on that one. One shot, no problem. The bleed value, 40,000 easy from the semi-automatic mode. Bleed on that one, 87,000 without even breaking a sweat. Now this is not just the weapon flexing its muscles. You gotta bear in mind, this is also Mirage. Mirage is an amazing frame and I do highly recommend it to just about everyone, but you gotta keep in mind she's not exactly the most surviving kind of frame. And if you prefer the standard assault rifle affair, switch to automatic fire and absolutely destroy whatever stands before you. As for the Tiberon Prime, my friends, this is still a great weapon, but it has one major problem. It's single target. You can add Punch Through. Yes, this is true. Punch Through is a form of AoE in Warframe, and you can add Prime Shred, and it will be fantastic on the weapon. But that doesn't change the fact that the Tiberon Prime is a single target weapon in an AoE meta. But if that doesn't bother you and you want something a bit more classic, and it incorporates all the free fire modes, automatic, semi-automatic, and burst fire modes, then the Tiberon Prime is one of the best options to go for, and I highly recommend the weapon. As always, my name has been Laser. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, favorite, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you got any feedback for me, I would love to read it in the comment section down below. Also in the comment section down below if you want to suggest any particular type of content. You can also catch me on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, all the usual places. And if you love the content and you want to help me keep making it, consider supporting us via Patreon. Link in the cards right now. Until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.